There's very little oversight, and because of a lot of this is actually private, there's really no way of finding out what's going on in those labs because a lot of that is protected by trade secrets. So there are a lot of very, very troubling questions. And a lot of experts, scientists that we spoke to all around the world who are very, very concerned about all this because we have to remember one thing, the world of germ weapons. There's very little difference, the line between what is offensive bioweapons research and defensive research is very blurry. We have to remember offensive biological weapons are actually outlawed by international treaties. Only defensive research is allowed. But in order to develop...
We got a break. Long segment coming up. Plenty of time for both of you to go through this story. But I don't want to miss the elephant in the room here. The government of the United States, England, you name it, have been caught over and over again testing radiologicals, chemicals, biologicals on their own populations, including lethal pathogens on foster children, veterans, the military, minorities. So,
do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
Ladies and gentlemen, they launched the anthrax attacks. They use it to pass the Patriot Act. All these political enemies of Bush get hit with it. Bush is on Cipro before 9/11 with the White House staff. This film is so important. It's Anthrax-War, a film by Bob Coen and Eric Nadler. We have it discounted out of the gates. Just came out at Infowars.com. We hope everybody gets it and shows it to people because this is just more evidence of the people running our system are not very friendly or not very nice. And it's a gateway into a whole larger world. You can also call toll-free to get it, 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139. You were trying to say something, Mr. Nadler, one of the filmmakers, as we went to break. Go ahead.
Well, basically, I can't recall the exact point, but I like to pick up on your point that there is a permanent government that will not go beyond the official narrative, be it Obama, be it Bush, be it Clinton. In other words, when it comes to very serious foreign policy pieces of business, like the anthrax attacks in 9/11, there is a line drawn in the sand. In other words, the biggest impediment, I believe, to a real honest investigation of these anthrax attacks is a real spotlight upon the FBI investigation, which is called the largest in our nation's history. 7 years, they went all around the world, issued, 5,500 subpoenas. Supposedly, they want you to make it think that it's the best investigation in the world. Obama comes in, he cleans house with everyone. Who does he keep? FBI Director Robert Mueller, the guy in charge of the anthrax investigation. And when Mueller goes up to testify in September 2008, he is grilled by Senator Patrick Leahy in something in our film that I think is the most interesting scene. Leahy, a target of the attacks, and the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee with oversight over the FBI, who for 7 years basically did not speak of the anthrax attacks. When we called him up early on, we heard from his press spokesman, Senator Leahy never speaks about the anthrax attacks at any time. Whoa. But in September 2008, 1 month after the FBI named Ivins as the lone gunman, Leahy looks right into the eyes of Mueller and says, Director Mueller, I do not believe that if Ivan was involved, that he was the only person who could be charged with murder. Whoa. This was not internet chatter, not Alex Jones chatter. This was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, a recipient of the anthrax letters, a man with direct oversight of the FBI, charging conspiracy and cover-up of the largest unsolved serial murder investigation in FBI history. And the fact that this new president, Obama, does not come forth and saying, let's get to the bottom of this, makes me think that there really is kind of a permanent government that draws a line in the sand and does not go further. And,
well, that's a whole other area, and I want both of you to respond to this. The suspicious death of the patsy, of the lone gunman, he, from what I've read and some of what the film covers, was actually investigating the anthrax and looking into it. They already tried to burn several other patsies, a Middle Eastern American scientist, the South African guy. They said some other people might have done it. First they said Arabs had done it, and the scribbling trying to frame Iraq. But you guys are the experts that totally have been focusing on this, so enlighten me here. Then we noticed in just a few news articles buried, but nowhere on national news, that the patsy had been grabbed, put in a mental institution, and then been in lockdown and died of prescription-strength Tylenol. I mean, how bizarre is that? And there wasn't anything about him being in government custody in the headlines. That itself was suspicious. And then it was, that's it, Patsy's dead. I mean, so they tried over and over again with different patsies. Finally, they got a patsy that couldn't argue with him, or I mean, just the suspicious death alone.
Well, we have to remember the first guy the person of interest that they initially focused on was another U.S. Army scientist, Stephen Hatfield. And they said they never named him as a suspect, but his name was leaked to the media. He was hounded by the FBI. And, Hatfield was a tough guy. He sued. He sued the media. He sued the FBI. And last year they settled with them. The government settled with him for almost $6 million and basically cleared him of all wrongdoing. And just a few weeks later, the FBI announces, hey, we've got our guy. The only problem is he's just committed suicide. And you're right. Bruce Ivins was also a U.S. Army scientist, and he did help the FBI early in their investigation into the anthrax attacks. And the FBI claimed that he got onto their radar a few months before, or a little bit longer than that, before he committed suicide. He was put under extreme pressure. Again, he was harassed by the FBI. His children were even approached and offered, I think his son was offered a sports car, a Corvette, if he could rat out his father. His security clearance was withdrawn, and Bruce Ivins, was made out in the media to have some mental problems. But it's true. He was put under a lot of duress. And the FBI a year ago announced that, we got our guy, but he's just committed suicide. The official story is that Bruce Ivins, was drinking heavily and took some prescription Tylenol and was found unconscious and taken to a hospital and, died 2 days later. But the interesting thing, Alex, is that we were actually in the edit room editing Anthrax-War at the time, last year when this happened. And at that point, the anthrax attacks were still unsolved. And it was very interesting because Bruce Ivins is actually the fifth dead scientist in our film. We'd followed a whole trail of dead scientists in our investigation, beginning with the death of David Kelly, the weapons expert who was an arms inspector in Iraq, who you might remember died in 2003, just after the invasion of Iraq, where he was found dead in the woods near his home in Oxford. And so we'd been looking into a whole spate of mysterious deaths of germ warfare scientists, all of whom were working with anthrax.
Go through some of those deaths, because it's not just the 5 suspicious anthrax connection deaths. There are hundreds and hundreds of microbiologists and people in key bioweapons development and bioweapons fingerprinting, especially, being murdered. I mean, there'll be people at University in Houston, a van in a 5-mile-an-hour zone runs over them in front of the students and then backs back over and leaves. Or people will be, one guy in Virginia, the Washington Post reported, was like satanically sacrificed with all his guts ripped out and heart cut out and pentagrams carved in him. Others are drowned in puddles of water. Others get double capped in the head. And I'm sure most of it isn't involving this case, but other cases of cover-ups. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a microbiologist working in or around government programs.
In fact, that is the sentiment that was expressed by John Eldridge, a Englishman who is the editor of Jane's Defense Weekly's Chemical and Biological Defense News Report, perhaps the most sophisticated analysis of chemical and biological weapons used by UN's weapons inspectors. It has a long history of being a reputable piece of business. And he said, when looking at this spate of dead scientists, he said, geez, I would not like to be a microbiologist. And this quote has been confirmed in a couple of places.